Well, welcome. Hope you're having a fantastic day today. Excited to continue our discussion on, a few things, just a few things that your father may not have told you about men. Now, this series, this training, this session is designed to speak to single ladies who may not have gotten good advice or advice at all from a father. I'm coming to you from that vantage point, and maybe you've been on date after date after date and it's not working. I'm really not talking to a married lady in this session. This session is designed for between date 1 and 2, long before you get to an engagement stage. It may tweak some things inside of you about that, but I'm really after, in this context, helping you make good decisions. How about better decisions before you make ultimate decisions that may put you in peril where you are crying at night? And just as a quick reminder, the reason why we're here, how we got here years ago. I'm 7 years old, and I'm consoling my mom on her arm, and Mom, what's wrong? She's crying. And she was the adult in the room, so she didn't say what it was, but I think I was branded at that point. And over the course of life, I've said more and more to our own two daughters, you don't need to cry at night. And that was based upon the guy that they were interested in dating or going to the prom with or whatever. And so my wife and I worked with our daughters. I, of course, took a particular interest in all of our children. We have a son and two daughters, all are grown, doing well. What a great blessing. Along the way, though, I started helping their friends and their friends' friends and that kind of thing. And I still do it to this day. I recognize that my mission on the planet, right here, doing a lot of different things, but my real focus in the church, outside of the church, in community, in my family, is really to help people love and like their life's most meaningful mission. I don't know what your mission is, but you have a life and you have a mission, and there's a meaning in that mission that you got to find. Well, my job as a part of things that I do on the planet is to help people love and like the life that they've been given, because in your life is a most meaningful mission. And if you can find that in relationship, if you can find that in your work, if you can find that in community, then you're going to be all right. Now, if you can't find it and you're frustrated by it, then it's tough. So this slice of that mission is specifically dedicated to those of you who are trying to get married. You want to get that man, that most significant other, if you will, and it's always a problem. You keep running into things. But we're not going to talk about him. We're going to talk about you. So the question that I posed to begin with was this: have you ever been called the queen, but not treated like one? Has that ever happened to you? And if it has, you are probably in the company of other people. Now, here's your solution to that. And it's pretty provocative. And I need you to hear me out before you decide that I don't like any of this. Perhaps the queen needs to get on the same page as the king. Now, this is not what you may be thinking. I'm not talking about just do what that man says. I'm really talking about the king that made you, because somebody made you and you got to get on the same page with him. Now, I want you to listen very carefully to this. Your homework is going to be found in a book. I hope you're okay with reading it. If not, I'm going to read it to you, but you need to read it. It's the book of Psalms, chapter 139. Verse number 16. The entire chapter is powerful. I'm only going to take a look at one item, because my goal today is to help you sort of, if you will, get to viewing yourself differently. Because if you're being treated differently, it could be that there's a role you could play in this, okay? That's all we're dealing with. I want you to start seeing yourself as the queen that you are. Once again, your father may not have called you a queen. He may not have treated your mother like a queen, because the first order of remembrance that we have in terms of how well relationships work are inside of the house you were raised in. Don't know how you were raised, but if daddy mistreated mama, the version of being a queen that you saw might still be resident on the inside of you. And that could be why you are attracting the kind of person that might say you're a queen, but you don't get treated like one. So check this out. In verse number 16 of Psalms 139, it says, "You saw me before I was born." Very, very powerful. And then it says, "And then you scheduled each day. Each day of my life was scheduled before I began to breathe." Next verse says, or the next part of that says, "Every day was recorded in a book." So the king who made you recorded your life in a book. Since he recorded your life in a book, you got to check whether or not you're on the same page. Because if he said get here and you're over there, if he said attract this and you're trying to attract that, then it's very difficult for you to align your most meaningful mission in life. And there are many meaningful missions: to be a wife, to be a mother, to be a businesswoman if you desire, to be a daughter who makes her mother and father proud, to be a girlfriend to girlfriends where you all sharpen one another and you just make life better for each other. All that's written on the book. It's written in the book of your page. It's written on the page in your book. Getting on the right page will cause the internal action, that is, the thoughts inside of your mind, to reflect ultimately on the outside. I'll say that again. Whatever you're thinking inside of you has got to be pronounced. It's got to be obvious. It's got to be real. It's got to be sustainable, to the degree that what you do on the outside is merely a reflection of what you are thinking on the inside. That's what I mean by getting on the same page with the king. All right. Again, I'm not talking about Buddy. And I'm not, again, talking to the married population. Of course, unity is required for anything to work. So you got to unify. And I'm not saying that I don't want you to unify, but the first order of your existence was you being made and put in your mother's womb, and a book being written about what your life is all about or should be all about. And we got to get on the same page. And here's one thing I want you to start doing right off the bat, ladies. Start forgetting about your failures. Please write that down. Forget about your failures. Some of you have great memories, and what you remember most is what you didn't do right. Perhaps others are reminding you of what you don't do right or didn't do right, but you got to start forgetting your failures. Well, how hard is that? Well, it just depends on how strong the failures are inside of you. If the failures are strong, if they are constant, if you are reminded of your failures, even in your own thoughts, then it's difficult for you to move and get on the right page, because you keep reminding yourself of how bad things were when you were on the wrong page. You have to get a real strong handle on this. And here's a way to replace that. And it's called Reconstruction Relationships. Reconstruction Relationships, not reconstructing, but just look at the title. The title of what we're going to do is we're going to reconstruct relationships. All right. So you had a bad past, or you have a past that you don't want to talk about. You did some things, said some things, saw some things, experienced some things that you do not like. And you feel like you're a prisoner of your past. Well, you are if you don't get on the same page as the king. Once again, perhaps the queen needs to get on the same page as the king. And I'm not talking about the man, I'm talking about the one that made you. So to get on the same page, we got to start looking at, if we're going to look at dimensions, we know that the past is a dimension because it already happened. The present is a dimension because it is happening. And with every moment, it's those moments that you just had, including that sentence I just said, is already working its way into the past. Instantly, it's already behind you. Well, what's in front of you is the future. That's a dimension. Well, if you want that dimension to be better than this dimension, you may have to deal with the dimension that's already gone, which is the past. So how do we do it? We have to reconstruct what's already behind us. Get on the same page. Look at what's ahead, look at what's behind, and look at what you can do right now. Because here you go. You can't change what happened in the past. You're a queen, but you're not being treated like one. So what does the future look like? It depends on what you do today with yesterday. Now, this is a practical, easy exercise that you got to work, okay? Just like you work a job or you do a job, you do some work. This is the work. You got to really take a look at 3 questions that deal with your present. And we'll talk about how they begin to kickstart your future and help you see the past differently. And it starts very clearly with this: why are you here, my queen or queen? Fill in the blanks. Why are you here, sister? Why are you here, my lady? Why are you here? You have got to answer that question. And if I hear you say, I don't know, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. But we're going to move on to, why are you here in this moment? Make it real specific. Well, because I need to get better. Okay, great. Better at doing what? Better at becoming. So why are you here? Which you must answer, even if you don't know. You don't know how you survived. I'm going to pique your interest in this idea. Maybe you're here to help somebody. Maybe you're here to help you. Maybe you're here to give a testimony of what it's like to overcome. Maybe the reason that you're here is because it's going to be a survival story that is going to really, really rock the earth. I don't know. Maybe you don't know why you're here because you don't like being here. But you got to answer the question, because I think you're here for a reason, because every queen has a court. When you answer the question, why are you here? It moves to the next big milestone, if you will, of awareness, which is, what are you supposed to do? See, if you look back in the past and you know that if you had it to do again, none of that would be the case, then why are you here now, given the past? Perhaps you're going to help somebody who is in the present of your past. Perhaps you're going to start helping them, and you're going to help them avoid some of what you went through. That'll make you feel good by itself, because you're helping somebody. Okay, so if you know why you're here, once you get to that point, even if you can just answer one reason, then you can move into, what are you supposed to do? See, this is how we're going to get on the same page as the king who wrote about your life. See, he wrote what life was supposed to be like. Perhaps you got disconnected and you're now offline. You don't really want to connect with what the future looks like, especially if it has anything to do with the past. We're not asking you to drudge it up. We're just asking you to answer the question. Why are you here? It's possible that you're here because you're so strong. What was trying to take you under, you got over. And that you're so strong that you're literally able to help somebody else who might be far weaker than you, who would have done far worse had their life been your life. And perhaps as a queen, maybe what your father didn't tell you is, it's bigger than getting a man. Maybe he didn't tell you something about men that men need. See, men need the queen that has been called forth on those pages to connect with them. And if you don't even like where you've been, then you're not bringing him value. Could be the reason, among others, that you're not being treated like the queen he calls you. Perhaps your value is on mute and you're not allowing it to speak, not about how bad things were, but knowing why you're here, you might begin to recognize the threat that you were when you were young, but you made it. So why are you here? I'm going to help somebody else make it. What are you supposed to do? Help somebody else make it. What else are you supposed to do? Make it. Make lemons into lemonade. Turn water that's under the bridge into wine that's in your cup. Perhaps what you're really here for is to help other people multiply the reality of the necessity of their existence. See, they gotta be here. You gotta be here. You gotta be here because they're here. You gotta be here because they need the help. See, you just think it's about the man, perhaps. And if you think it's just about that guy, you getting that guy, I'm gonna tell you, your father did not tell you the real deal. You're here for a whole lot more than just that guy. You're here for the one that made you. He may not have told you that, but I'm telling you, you don't have to be on a pulpit with a microphone. Your voice is vocal cord enough. Vocal cords enough. Your feet are the platform. Now tell your story. Tell your queen story. See, there's something about what you've overcome that somebody needs just a bit of in order to get them through the day and to the life that they were created for. See, it's written in a book. Once you know why you're here, then you can move to what are you supposed to do. If you can move to what you're supposed to do, and you now know at least a few things, perhaps you can move to the final component of this process of you being the queen that is supposed to be helping out with the king in his court. And that is answering the third question. How can I improve? What? Not upon the story, upon your life. I think back to all kinds of people. I think of Oprah's poverty story that got her to where she is. I think of Helen Keller or Ann Keller. I mean, you talk about a comeback story of comeback stories. Helen Keller. A comeback story of comeback stories. Anne Sullivan was her teacher. And she literally taught this little girl who became a woman that being the first blind person to graduate from a school, a university, is for you to do. See, it was written on the pages of her book, Psalms chapter 139, verse 16. Something was written on the pages of your book, and you gotta live those pages. You might be the only somebody going through what you're going through, but without you going through, no one knows how to get through. See, it's way more than the relationship. Here you go. Of what that man does for you. It's what you do for him. Do you not understand that the reality of what you've come through helps him get through? And let me tell you another thing your father may not have told you. Just a few things. Some guys are not willing. They're not even strong enough because they don't want to be broken by not looking like the version that they hope you see them as. And so you have to be wise to help a guy recognize it's okay. I know when I was first trying to figure out direction and design and development, once I left the military, and my wife said to me at the time, we had only been married, I don't know, probably 6 years, maybe 5 or 6 years. And we were about to leave, had left Texas to come to Atlanta because I cut short my training. My military training was supposed to continue, but I didn't know that. In my head, I'm thinking I don't like it because of X, Y, and Z. And so I decided with good reasoning that it's time to get out. But the Lord didn't say it. He did say it, but he didn't say when. And I wasn't listening for when because I wanted to be out then. It's another thing that sometimes as men, your dad may have forgot to tell you. When we think we're right, there ain't a lot that's going to change that. But here's one thing that you can know, and this is what my wife did for me. All she said in the conversation is, I'm trying to recapture the relationship. I'm trying to reconstruct how we ended up where we were here in Atlanta, away from the provision of the military and a career that had already gotten me recently at the time promoted to captain. How am I now here putting Ninja Turtle bottles on a conveyor belt on a third shift and delivering newspapers on a second shift? How did I get here? She said, my wife did, well, maybe you just didn't hear the Lord. You would have thought she punched me in the gut and was talking about my mama. I mean, I didn't go off on my wife because we don't have that kind of relationship because I respect her as a queen. But I was thrown into a tailspin of how could that be wrong? How could I miss God so badly when I talk to God so much? How could I? And all these questions were swirling in my mind. What else did I get wrong? What else did I miss? If I missed that, I probably missed this and probably missed that. And I was disoriented. See, your father may not have told you that about men. Men can get disoriented. That's why we don't ask y'all for directions. Not because you're disoriented, but because in the disorientation, we want to be oriented and we want to look good in your eyes. So we don't want to ask you, but you might have seen it. So you got to know that about a man. That's why you got to be the queen, the kind of queen that you're designed to be, so that you can show up as the queen. And that's important, but you can't show up if you don't know why you're there. You can't show up as the queen if you don't know what you're supposed to do. You can't show up as the queen if you don't know how to improve. You got to know this now, because in that one statement, my wife was helping me to clarify the why, the what, and the how. She didn't say that, and I didn't know that. And it wasn't until many years later that I realized, as we were working with a couple, I said, you know what? And I was telling the person, one thing my wife never did, while I was trying to figure it out, while I was growing, she never berated me. She never emasculated me. She never made it seem like, you don't know what in the world you're doing, do you? She never challenged the learning process. You know why? Because she was walking in why she was there. She was walking in what she was supposed to do. She was walking in how she could improve, and the king saw it. Not the king in heaven. You know he saw it. This king. And I woke up to her value. Man, this right here ought to not just be part of a series, which it is. It could be the series. Because when you start doing that, you'll stop attracting a man below your reigning capacity. You'll stop attracting a man that will fight you because he hasn't understood who he is yet. And you'll stop attracting a man that gives you revenge because of what you saw in your house growing up. This is so powerful in the context that it's 3 simple questions. Why are you here? What are you supposed to be doing? How can you improve? When you start answering those questions, and I mean answering them in life, in community, in family, in business, in spiritual matters, when you start answering those questions, you're going to start bridging the gap between your existence of questions that you have and what's happening in the environment that's trying to pull things out of you that really shouldn't be there. And this is what I mean by that in terms of the example. And we're almost wrapped up here on this session. There are things that the environment, any environment, is interested in for its own good. Okay, so if you play football or basketball or baseball, or if you're around girlfriends, or you're in a spiritual environment, the environment itself is pulling on your environment. And if you're not careful, you'll get sucked into other people's drama and other people's situations. I've had people or heard people tell brand new newlyweds how many problems they're going to have because they experienced problems themselves. So that's what I mean by a bad example or a bad environment working to pull you in to its environment. It's crazy. And so fortunately, these people say, well, that ain't my story. You know why they could say that? They knew why they were there. And it wasn't to replicate their error in their marriage. It wasn't to go in the same direction as the problems they experienced. It was, in fact, to develop a life that they want, not a replication of the life that this group was wanting. And they thought they were giving good advice. What they were really doing was complaining about something they still hadn't fixed. And you know why they hadn't fixed it yet? They're not answering questions. Are you here to relive the past and then tell others about it? Are you here to create havoc in other people's lives because you had havoc in yours? Or do you think by warning them that havoc is coming, that it's coming exactly the way it came to you, and so it must be coming to them too? I mean, come on. That's what I'm trying to convey to you, that the environment that you are in, whatever it is, it has its own agenda in mind, meaning it wants to feed off of what makes itself stronger. So you have to be aware of environments. And there are 2 most important to be aware of. The one that's in you and the one that you're in. And as a queen, you got to know what's inside of your environment by answering, why am I here in this environment? What am I supposed to do in this environment? It closes the gaps, queen, fill in the blanks, whatever your name is. It closes the gap. Because what the environment wants to do is open the gap so that there's room for you to be made a product of your environment. So if you knew some crazy people, you bring crazy to the relationship. If you want peace, you bring peace to the relationship. If you want drama, You bring drama to the relationship. You don't want drama. You probably don't deal with conflict very well because you're trying to avoid drama. You see what I hope you're seeing this. See, because your father may not have told you just these few things about men. Men too come from an environment. And that environment must be decoded first by the man. But if he can't, I need you to. Not his, yours. Because when you can decode yours, you'll walk in a way to help him decode his. Without berating him, he can see the good works in you and pull from that until he's strong enough to say thank you. I'm telling you, I need to put this on a 497 mastermind. In fact, I'm going to do it. I better get this while it's free. Because this is powerful to your existence. That when you know how the environment in you is supposed to be, then you can inform the environment by examples that should change. Every king needs a queen like that. What your father may have forgotten to tell you about men is that men need environments too. And when we don't know how our environment got to the place where it got to, if we can just find an example in the queen that we've invited into our lives. Now I'm talking to married people now. I know I told you to begin with, I'm not talking to married people, but that's a married statement. But more than that, if you're beginning to think about marriage with someone that you're looking at, and he's always talking about how you don't look this way, that way, it's just a run so fast. In fact, tell him, drop me out right here. I know it's on 285, but the Uber to ride alongside where you are at the same location and say, get me out of here, because you're with the wrong guy. If he doesn't know where he is, who he is, what he's supposed to be doing and how he can improve, who, what, where, and why, and how. If he doesn't know those answers, and I'm not talking about super deep stuff about a career, I'm talking about him, his existence, then he will invite you into a castle that's in confusion and ask you to clean it up, call you the queen, but not treat you like one. Well, I hope this helped you. We're right at the 27-minute mark, and we typically go 30, but there's enough for you to chew on in this that you may not even need to go to the next session until you finish this. What have we been talking about? Well, we've been talking about a few things, just a few things that your father may have forgotten to tell you about men. Now, if you're in the dating game, I want you to go to calvintibbs.com, and I want your date to take a test. It's for conversation. It's a survey. It's for conversation so that you can avoid wasted time going out with a man whose castle is in disarray. What you want to do is ask him to take the Man Made for Marriage survey. It's right on the website. You got to scroll down to the bottom. There's a fee associated with it. You're worth that fee. It's better than buying you flowers. And once he takes that test, I want him to have conversations with you about his answers. Why did he answer that way? I don't get involved until or unless you all invite me to that. And you can go on calvintibbs.com and book a strategy session, and I can help decode some of that for free in a free strategy session. But it ought to cost him to qualify for your hand. And I would tell all of your girlfriends, girl, get that man to take that test or that survey, okay? Because test guys be like, what? It's a survey, because there's no right or wrong. It's just what is. And when they take that survey, they're going to find out where they are on certain subject matters that I know are important to you. They're important to him too. Later on, y'all can have the conversation about, what to do, how to do, and that kind of a thing. But for right now, get the man, your early stages boyfriend. And if you're married and you want to have conversation about it, that's great too. But I'm really after folks, before you say I do, find out what he does. And he can help tell you what that is by the answers that he takes or the answers that he provides on this. Listen, hope this helped your cause. I enjoyed it immensely. You want to connect with us some more? Join our Facebook group. It is also free. And you'll have a great time there because it will help to create conversation among other people with subject matter that is important to you. Look, we'll see you the next time we get together. Relationship Doctor. See you soon.